Good morning, everyone. Microphone check. Screen check. Looks like everything's looking good here. Microphone's a little hot. Jeez, let me back that up a little bit. There we go. All right. Microphone check. There we go. That's better. All right. Welcome. Hopefully everyone was able to rest up, get ready for the day ahead and all that fun stuff. As always, before we jump in on the left side of the screen there, make sure to read through the Live Trader Morning Prep PDF. Very important to go through and understand everything that is inside there. Just a quick note before we're jumping in. On the YouTube side of things, the YouTube broadcast does have between a 5 and 30-second delay, depending on where you're logging in from, which will definitely impact the timeliness of what I may be talking about at any given moment. Also, just want to take a second to give a shout out to the latest members that joined overnight, yesterday afternoon, etc. Thank you so much for the support. I'm pumped to have you on the SSFTG family. If you aren't a member yet, you have a few different options to check out if you are looking to further your trading education and career. Here on YouTube, you can check out the join button below the stream. YouTube family gains access to the extended hours trading room, which continues the morning session from 10 until whenever the market slows down enough to finish off the day, usually around 11, 10:30 or so. Every member gains permanent access to the Discord chat server, and of course, you get the awesome badge next to your name. That way you can show your support here on YouTube, and plus it just looks cool. To understand what we're doing, look no further than the Day Trading Academy. You can find that over on SSFTG. It's no small, lightweight PDF you're going to finish in an afternoon, so you best buckle up and tuck in because you're looking at about 19 plus hours of course material with study guides, homework, review, all kinds of stuff. Then next up, the big one, the big Mac Daddy, the final boss, the VIPs. They have full, obviously with everything else, of course, VIPs also have exclusive permanent access to the non-delayed stream, covering the entire morning session from 9 until whenever we finish, to ensure that you're on the fastest connection possible so latency doesn't become a problem and there's no delay, and that way you don't miss any beats along the way. Of course, alongside that, VIPs also have access to the VIP monthly webinars, private events, one-on-one scheduling access, all kinds of cool stuff. So whether you're here for the very first time or you're a seasoned VIP veteran over on the Zoom stream, welcome. I'm glad to have you trading alongside with me today and analyzing these crazy markets of ours. Taking a look here, first off, grab the morning DP levels as I posted for you this morning, so we've got those covered for you. And those are the major markets that we take a look at for the day. All the big 7. And then looking at the news calendar for today, we did have some medium to small news announcements earlier this morning at 8:30, the exports and imports and all that fun stuff, but not really anything big until 10 o'clock. That's when we have the JOLTS job openings for April. Forecast is 8.3 million. So we do have some news today that we're going to have to keep our eyes on going into that 10 o'clock time slot. Not really much else, though. So we can get that out of the way. Let's take a look at the bigger picture and what's going on here on the NASDAQ. First, the overall move, we've been talking about this for a while, but the big thing that we saw here was that top-weighted POC that built up for multiple days. Sellers tried getting that drive to the downside, and ultimately, right there, and there, and there, they failed. They couldn't finish the job, and it cycled all the way back to the upside, breaking higher very aggressively, and they were not shy in that rally to the upside. With that momentum higher, we are potentially looking at a secondary leg at some point in time. We're just not sure as to when. It looks like, obviously, that's getting a bit closer. This does create a spike in channel or a spike in wedge type formation working its way up. The caveat to that, of which is that we are at the highs of, that doesn't make it easy. It's kind of a bummer. Makes it a little bit difficult, but we'll see. You know, being at the top of the wedge and with all of that resistance up there, maybe we want to see a bit of a pullback on the open. It would make a little bit more sense. That said, doesn't have to. Over on the S&P, aside from that quick little V-bottom flush that they had, that vindictive, just what an SOB of a flip, huh? Don't leave your stops on the S&P. Jeez. That's why I don't like stops underneath non-confirmed swings, but this is why I don't like anything in the overnight. What a messy little nasty thing that is. How much you want to bet people are going to be waking up today super upset because they might have been long yesterday going into yesterday and they had their stops there thinking they were good in the overnight. Maybe they had it just a little close because it's not like it went one tick underneath it. It did kind of pop the low a little bit. They're going to wake up to seeing that they were long, here, sat underwater for a little while, finally went positive, tapped out on their stop at the loss just to see where it is right up in their target area. I bet a lot of people are going to be super upset today coming in with that vindictive little flush that they had on the overnight. Now that we're all the way up at new highs, I'm expecting some FOMO here, especially on the S&P. NASDAQ, I would like to see a bit of a pullback, but like I said, it doesn't have to. On the gold market, we had that cycle to the downside, although not as strong as the indexes that's rallied back up to the highs. We do still have a very sharp reversal, V-bottom, and that copy-paste mirror move that we had. Now we cycled back up to a new high, and we found a bit of a double top that is now pulling back on itself. Realistically, if we're looking from the bottom here, this hasn't had much of a pullback. The deepest pullback that it had was an L1. That's it. So in terms of the next largest pullback, this could really be begging for a deeper move back down to the L3s, L4s, and that would put it right back into that previous zone of value. It would make a bit more sense, noting that buyers really haven't had a chance to load up. And if buyers were looking, or I'm sorry, if sellers were looking for the short continuation movement, they had an L4 rotation down that, well, we're kind of back in that L4 rotation, and it, like to the tick, poked that L5 on the highs. So that little poke on the highs and that trap on the top that makes me nervous to not want to buy too far up. It would make more sense to see that carry through a bit further, maybe get down into those 75s. Crude oil, man, crude oil is kind of painful to look at lately. Mostly sideways, but we still have that bullish churn that just keeps on grinding. Nice little, I don't even really want to call it a pullback. It's mostly just gone sideways, but I guess for anything else, it did pull back to the bottom of the channel where we're seeing some bullish support coming back up in and trying to break back into the settlement price and above. The $70 marks a very obvious zone of resistance, but actually a little bit ahead of that. Seems like 69.75 is where the brick wall was sort of laid out, and I don't think 70 was actually hit. Did they hit it? Did they go to Walmart special? Did they Walmart special crude oil at the top? Oh no, they got 70 exactly. Okay, so they did go to 70. I guess job done. Jeez. From negative $40 to positive 70. Crazy. On the euro, we have an overall sideways move, but it has failed more recently off of the lows. If the bulls are going to try to hold it realistically, a deeper pullback to the 21,400s, that breakout pullback mentality makes a lot more sense than where it is now. I just don't want to buy way up here and then see it finally get the two-legged pullback where we expect it to pull back to. It seems like they're trying to get that flag continuation, and if that's the case, we really won't have to come in too early. A lot of times we can wait until way over here until there's some proof to that upswing, and there's plenty of time for that. So from the euro's perspective, I would rather see a two-legged correction down or more proof from the bulls, one way or the other. Bitcoin hovering on settlement right underneath that previous little swing low. If the bulls are going to vindict this low, trap the bottom, and have this thing go screaming higher and be up by 40,000, 41,000 by next week, this is the spot that they're going to do it. That's what it comes down to. The same thing that we just saw in the S&P, that quick little trap, although the S&P has a much stronger bull trend. This is a bear trend creating a bottom. Notably, the NASDAQ has, Bitcoin, one of these freaking markets, hasn't made any major lows, and the last time they did, every single time, it was a rejection, right? Every single time, it was a rejection. Well, we finally come back down, and we're breaking down through some of these strong lows. The first inclination is for this to be a rejection, and see this go cycling right back up. This is the spot. And the reason why a lot of buyers are going to like it here, because they don't have to risk much. If it gets down like underneath 32, they're probably wrong, right? And if it doesn't pull back and starts continuing higher, the upside objectives at minimum are 36.5 to 37, and you're already at like 3 to 1 there, and that's just the short-term targets. So upside has a lot of potential here from a risk-reward standpoint on Bitcoin and Ethereum in the same shoes. Ethereum arguably a little bit more, just given how bullish it's been. We'll see what they're able to do. From the larger perspective on the daily, we can see that, well, we had that POC cluster. They built the POC at the top. They had the giant blow off and the giant failure. We were talking about how yesterday anywhere near that POC is going to be an escape plan for sellers, and it was. It never even made it back. It couldn't even test it break even. If you look, remember that POC that was just above there momentarily? That's where it pulled back to. So chances are they pulled back to the original entry point, took their break evens there. They realized they were wrong, and they were looking for e-stop exits, right? They needed to get out, and it's not a surprise for them hitting the top POC if that was the case. Now, as far as this continuation to the upside, I mean, it's pretty bullish, right? We were talking, this gives us implications to the upside of, let's see, where does the, I mean, just POC deviations give us upside objectives of 14,450. New highs, all-time highs, and all-time highs by about 400 points. That's no small move. And a lot of times with these big mid-weighted POCs that break out, those moves happen fast. I'm not talking like 2 months from now. I'm talking like maybe 2 weeks from now, you know, like really aggressive bullish momentum when you have these types of trap shorts. We've seen it before over and over again. Now, we've also seen it with the sellers regain their confidence. That's what happens here, and the market dives lower. So the sellers have to lose their confidence, and they have to stay just totally underwater. So far, the bulls are doing a good job. No, come here. Over on the 60, they did get that L2 pullback with a continuation of the highs. If we look at the more recent highs, just to kind of gauge what may be happening in the near-term cycle, we did have a very obvious higher-low rejection, which was an L5. Didn't look like it was going to happen, but typically with L5s, you get the L2 pullback. They missed it. They got the L1. We've seen this before. They miss it. They keep hitting L1, 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 L1. That usually means stay the heck out of the way of the bulls or keep buying. But once it does pull back, expect that pullback, usually led by MACD divergence and undertow, something like that along the highs, to give us an idea that a deeper pullback is expected, and that deeper pullback, that's the L2. That's what we're waiting for right now. Hasn't happened yet. Still very top weighted up here. An L2, an example, would be way the heck down here at 13,750. That number should ring a bell. Man, I hope it rings a bell. That thing's a nightmare level. It's a recurring nightmare that just keeps coming back. Interesting to see that lines up right there. We'll see if they're able to pull back. Got the open right around the corner here. 13-ish minutes. Still pretty early to the party. If we zoom in a bit closer to the 500 tick to see what's going on from this perspective, the Asian and Euro session were stacked. Slightly bearish. But, I mean, in hindsight, we can very plainly see what happened. Nice little two-legged drive down. Looks like it missed the two-legged completion and then reversed aggressively. When you have a reversal aggressively, you expect two legs. That's usually what happens. We haven't even had an L2 pullback yet. So, I mean, realistically, the first pullback that does happen, we're probably going to get a two-legged correction back into a zone of interest. Right now, that's right into the L2. And if we look backward, is that a POC zone? It was for a second before they made that next one. Let's back up a little bit. Yeah, they tried getting a top-weighted POC here, which means that also gives us upside objectives that we can stay on the gas pedal until we start hitting in the 13,925s. So, bulls are still rocking and rolling. As far as the overall cycling goes, I mean, the sellers had one move. That was it, the L4, and it broke down and then completely failed. Buyers would love a pullback. That's really what it comes down to. From the 15-minute on a volume perspective, if we look at it from the top down, we originally had this move down that looked like this with the mid-weighted POC kind of in the center of the action here, where the sellers broke down underneath. Bulls tried breaking above, and you can even see they tried redefending with the secondary pop, but it failed back through. That was that vindictive overnight little flush there that took out all of those stops at the low and then whoop, right back up to the highs. 100% that was accumulated like it was going out of style. Now, you might not see it reflected in volume. Typically, if they did it properly, you won't. But I mean, it's very obvious. Look what happened. I mean, you tell me. It's pretty obvious that it was accumulated, and it rocketed it all the way back up to the highs. Now that we have that massive low and that massive turning point like we were talking about, there's going to be a ton of buyers who are pissed that they got trapped out of that move last night. Their stops were probably under the lows. Same thing on the S&P, but if we can get it to pull back on the NASDAQ, right back to that POC or even close, just somewhere around there to allow the buyers back in to get that secondary drive back up and at least recoup some of what they missed. Definitely on the FOMO side today. We've got to be paying attention to that. I think if the sellers are going to take it lower, they're going to have to at least break below the 13,870s if they're going to get any traction. And so far, from the top to the bottom, it's just been bulls giving up. So, you know, there's that. Yikes. What a monster of a trend to the upside, though. We'll see if they can keep this thing going or what they want to do. We've got the opener around the corner here. Honestly, just looking at the 500 tick on the NASDAQ, it looks like an almost perfect seller's opportunity for a trap. But the market's incredibly bullish. So if I were a buyer and I were looking to accumulate as many sell orders as I could to buy them up, I would do it underneath that bear bar. And notice the first response. It triggered underneath that bear bar and the 500 tick immediately snapped back up. We haven't seen this candle close. There's still 340 ticks left. But you can kind of see what's happening here. Look at the buyers coming in. They know this is a bad spot for sellers to come in, so they're trying to use it to their advantage. The bulls also know that their probability is bad down here because their stops are so close to current market. So if they're trying to get in, what better spot with as low of risk as possible than right there? Open objectives back to even the intermediary highs is 2-to-1. It makes sense why buyers would be trying to get this to pop here. From a risk-reward standpoint, at least. Would like to see the POC shift or maybe, you know, gain a little bit more proof on a volume side of things, but this 500 tick bull bar creeping up is looking nice. We still have plenty of time until the open. They're losing their grip a little bit. Excuse me. Like I said, if it does break down a new low underneath those 870 quarters, it's more likely that we see a larger correction, bigger than just that L1. So I don't necessarily mind looking for a follow-up short just for a larger reversion to the mean. It's blatantly obvious that we've reverted away from the mean with this giant screech to the upside. And a lot of times it wants to pull back just a bit deeper than you'd expect it to. But it's got to break that low first. Right now, it looks like buyers are using every sell attempt as a trap. Got the open around the corner here. Still 10 minutes. There's still some time. There's a ton of wick on the bottom here. Bulls just gobbled those shorts up. We haven't seen a POC shift yet, but a candle like this, we might see it sooner than later. 10 minutes until the open. Potential for bulls to try to get this to rally higher. It is under the POC, so that is a concern. Ugh, God, that bull candle, that could have been a lot better. I joined the YouTube channel. How do I stay on after the regular streaming ends? Yeah, so you don't necessarily stay on, per se, but if you go into the communities page on YouTube, I post a link for the next day, the day before. So, like, today's link for the extended session was posted yesterday. And you can find that in the communities session, or communities section on YouTube. Yep. Yeah, and if you have any problems, just let me know. Man, sellers are not proving a thing right now. Look at all those wicks down here. Remember a couple days ago we were talking about the pocket of wicks and how it sort of creates this zone of interest. Originally, there really wasn't one. They kind of closed it all up. But then we created here and went a little bit further, and now it's up to right about there. That's what it's kind of left open at the moment. And you could even argue that it goes all the way down to here, this whole area. So realistically, as far as like opens and closes, this zone down here, every time it gets on the lower portion, that's where buyers seem to pick it back up again. It's that lower pocket of wicks. No POC shift or anything like that yet. Oh, man. There's a lot of wicks on the top, too. Don't get tied up on one side. Wow. Okay. There's nothing I can do about that. That's just, well, we'll chalk that one up to fate. It was either you were in it already or you weren't. It's nothing I can do about that. See if they can dip back down sub 83s for a moment. Likely a lot of sellers are stuck. It's blurry on 720. Can you make it 1080? It should be 1080. All of the settings are set to 1080. I don't know why it wouldn't be 1080. I'll have to check again if it's not going through, but obviously another thing I can do, let me make the font bigger. let me make everybody's life a little bit simpler here. Font, it's on 12, which is probably great for me and awful for you guys. Let me bump it to like 16. That's probably a bit more user friendly, huh? How about this? For whatever reason, the stupid thing doesn't want to work in 1080p, so I'll find a workaround and just make the font bigger, and hopefully that will help the clarity. Where the heck is the font for this? There it is. 16. There. Bold? That'll make it even better. Yeah. All right, so I mean, obviously, there's nothing that I could do about that move higher. I was looking for that move back up. I liked the bull bar. We were talking about the concerns of the wicks on the highs. I mean, it did what we want, but it's good enough to get the gist. Yeah, it just, that bugs the crap out of me if that doesn't work right. Because I know it's supposed to, kind of thing, you know? Which means that this probably doesn't look right either. Make that a little bigger. Alright. Little dip underneath this previous bull bar. We'll get buyers involved, except I can't get a fill. Alright, let me see if I can get a dip back a little bit further down. I tried hitting the bid, but I didn't get it. We've got 2 minutes until 9:28. That's when a bit more volume starts coming in. Even close to 84s doesn't necessarily have to make it all the way. That bear bar I'm not a huge fan of, but technically it's not the signal bar, so I think it's more deceptive than it actually looks. Did hit a pretty big chunk of volume up at the top there. You can see it standing out. I think I'm going to get the dip and even close to 84. I was okay even buying above it. Nope. This candle still has 300 ticks left, but I mean, realistically, the way that that moved, I think a lot of sellers are stuck. They're just looking for a way out. Give them a little bit of a pulse back to the downside. Find some support down there closer to 83. 82, even 81. That's going to be the zone of interest. If you got a timestamp on the chart somewhere? No, actually, not on the new layout. The new layout, we've got more room, so now I can tuck this on the top corner. There we go. Quick little dip sub 84s. I hit the bid, but the bid was 83.50. I'm not going to get filled down there. I'm going to see if they can get a dip underneath 83, and I want to see the response to that. Again, I think this bear bar down is deceptive. I don't think there's actually that much strength just based on the way that this moved. But we've got the open around the corner that can mess with things a little bit. So it wouldn't hurt my feelings to see it slide down just a tad. It's a lower high. Get a little bit of a shove underneath these 83s. We've got 1 minute until the open, so timing is incredibly awkward. Might have to wait through the open just to get some of this blech out of the way. Looks pretty clear on 720. Okay, good. I was hoping the increase in font size would do the trick. I mean, even if it is a Band-Aid. All right, nice little flush to the downside. POC immediately shifts lower. Watch this POC at 880 as we go into the open. It's going to get really whippy here, but where this forms is going to be super interesting. They closed underneath it. Coming back up, attempting to break above, failing back lower. Okay, so the buyers utilize that as an opportunity to potentially get out. These are very, very fast moves, obviously, but we're starting to get that deeper dip. Very nice drive to the downside. Pretty big reversal back up, too. Holy moly. This is a new low. So technically, all of this is part of the pullback now. Another really nice bear bar. Sellers might start utilizing that as an opportunity to drive lower. Look left, though. Bull bar, this is where buyers triggered in earlier. If they're going to defend their earlier entries or reload or do something around that zone, that's the spot right around there. Jeez. All right. Bulls trying to rally back up, but now 80 is still going to be a zone of resistance. Sellers trying to break lower. They're still holding on. That's a nice bull bar up. Technically, though, that's not the signal bar. The bear bar at the bottom was. So I want to see how they respond to it. POC still up at 880. A strong bear bar here will get sellers involved, attempting to get a breakdown for further movement lower. Noting that bulls didn't support. They didn't get it, though. Okay. Now they're going bull engulfing. Shifting gears a little bit here. Nice pop to the upside, retesting 880. To the tick. Immediately backed off it. 200's always good for a trusty bounce, yep. Good old faithful. See if the bulls can break back above this cluster at 880. Or reform a new POC, which it looks like they might be trying to do here at 73. Still haven't seen proof yet. To the tick off that 880. Yikes. All right. Farther down we go. This would be the third leg down, possibility of a 3-press low, although it looks like it just wanted to get a singular new low. See if they can get a poke down and test the low of that wedge. That would be a really nice point for scalpers to try to pick it up for trying to bottom pick, basically. Just be careful. You know what happens when you try to pick bottoms. Sometimes the hands come up a little bit browner than when they went in. Get the bulls back above that 880. Retesting it again. Churning higher. Oh, they got to crack it. They have to crack it. They couldn't do it. All right. Triggering underneath the bull bar. Wow. Okay. Dipping down a little bit. Big breakout above 80. Buyers will be looking for the snapback to reaccumulate for a rally higher on that move. I didn't get a fill on that pullback. Okay, there we go. Look to hit the ask, but the ask was at the top. And now if we support this, there should be another pop above 85. So I really don't see a reason to sell ask on another high until we break above. Nice bear bar for a washout on the buyer's attempt to get things going. Very nice little dip back down again. Now we're underneath the POC. So things get a little bit more difficult here if the bulls can't churn this up very quickly. Back up to the POC cluster. I'm going to reduce one off at that break-even point as both a marker and just a way to kind of reduce risk. But I would like to see if we can shove back above the highs. And this supportive bounce back above the POC is a huge clue. Closing back above it is even bigger. Dipped underneath the previous bull bar. I wasn't fast enough to even hit the button. If this goes bull engulfing, this could go nuts. And that time I didn't get filled. Cool. All right. Whoa! Big pop to the upside. See if they can rifle through the 85s. This is their shot. Come on, NASDAQ. Pop the top. We're back above the POC. This is a fantastic scenario for bulls to be in to get this rally going. Fantastic location. Right there. Beauty. Absolutely gorgeous. From the swing perspective on the micro side, we've got a zone of interest dipping back into the 7850s, and I'll kind of catalog that move along, along the way. If this stops at some point, of course. So there is a swing potential if this can back up just a little bit on the micro side. 81 with, realistically, shouldn't break down much further. So the micro has a potential swing long, looking from, 81, okay. 81 with upside objectives at 89. Sheesh. Howdy ho there, neighborino. This thing just... And target hit. All right. There's a 2-to-1 swing. Jeez, bingo bango right there. Fair enough. Nice bullish continuation here on the NASDAQ. If they can get a dip into the 86s, I think buyers will be buying that dip. Or not. I mean, obviously they did, but without me. Jesus. In hindsight, she just held on to the micro, huh? Wow. Just a ripper to the upside. Previous continuation, we know they didn't shift the POC, so if we look at what they were able to actually accomplish, it was right there at 13,880. If the market's going to pull back, that would be a logical zone of interest to come back to. I really thought they were going to get that 3-press low, but they couldn't even do that. Ooh, lordy. ES is looking heavy, is it? Yikes. Yeah, the S&P is not sharing in this bliss, is it? Crude oil also. Whoa, crude. Okay, now hang on. We're starting to finally pull back a little bit here. Let me take a break away from the NASDAQ for just a second. We've got L1s all the way up. Where's that L2? Oh, man, we're like still a mile away, aren't we? All right, well, never mind. I thought it was a little closer than that. Disregard. Popping even further up. We are at that major upside objective that we were talking about earlier. Remember the POC cluster that got this stuck in the middle? Upside objective. We're hovering right in that zone now. It's got maybe, I mean, at best, maybe 10 or 15 more points to go until we start running out of steam. So the gas pedal's still down, but we do also have news at 10 o'clock. 9:45 is the next barrier, although there's nothing happening at 9:45. It does sometimes still rock the boat a little bit. Bulls continuing back to the upside again. Unrelenting. Jeez, that was a fast snapback. Okay. We are running into a bit of resistance up here. Not a surprise. I mean, buyers will take profit here. This is the half DP to the upside. Bull engulfing candle. This will get buyers involved on the micro scale again, although I don't really want to buy the top. I would like a strong bull bar and then it to trigger and pull back a little bit. It's got a trigger, though, too. Like, it pulling back now doesn't help me. All right, there we go. Now it triggered. Not pulling back, though. I didn't get the fill when I wanted it. Oy. Okay. You remember Sideshow Bob from The Simpsons? We've been on a big Simpsons kick lately. That was every time you hit the stupid rake. Market still begging for a deeper pullback, although it hasn't quite had it yet. Really nice bull bar back up. Likely a lot of sellers potentially stuck on the high of that bear bar, and this bull bar back up is kind of shoving them out. It's forcing people to buy very high. I'll wait for something that's a bit more refined, and certainly not after a bear bar on the top like that. Yikes. I mean, you can see what's happening. They're still just kind of grinding off of this initial channel. It's the first time that they've actually broken underneath it. Zone of interest at the moment is going to be dipping down here into the 905s or so. Mostly still for scalpers, but bulls are looking for a continuation leg. Swing longs, like continuation of the trend, would prefer to see down in the 880s. So I think this is definitely very much only on the scalp side. Divergence on the highs, yeah. It's still just kind of pinging off the top. There's some definitive warning signs. Even if we slow it down, like put this on a 500 tick to give us an idea of what's going on there, it's been diverging since this morning at like 7:30. Deeper pullback would be very nice. I would be very happy with a deeper pullback. Man, another nasty bear bar on the top. The heck is this line on my chart? What is that? Go away. I must have added an indicator in accident. Anyway, still like that deeper pullback, but at the moment now it looks like they've modified it a bit higher and a bit more refined as well, very narrow. What are they doing up here? They got a top-weighted POC again. Eesh. Okay. Well, so far it's top-weighted and it's above. Sellers haven't shown up to the party yet. They will, or at least they'll try. I don't know if they're actually going to get anything done, but... Alright, this is their attempt. Well, maybe. That popped up pretty quick after they tried going down. Okay. Seller's still trying underneath 9/4. Whoo, big flush. There we go. All right, now this is a very heavy dive to the downside. I don't necessarily want to be the first one to the party per se, but if we can start dipping down, if this maintains this aggression and gets down to 880, I will be looking to reverse it. I'm okay juggling knives when I know that the board behind me is pretty close and I've got some pretty thick gloves. Down here, I've got the board behind me and some pretty thick gloves and maybe a mask. Up here, I've got some maybe some rubber gloves. That's about it. Come on now. We are getting very close. Also potential for this to be that deeper pullback in the larger sequence. The rotation off the highs so far has been L1s. L2 would be down at 74, 75-ish in that zone. Oh man. Very curious to see if they can dip underneath this last bull bar that just formed here. That pop-up was very aggressive. If I were a short and I saw that kind of momentum, that would make me a little nervous. See if they can dip a little closer down to like the 92s, 93s. I think the sellers are nervous. And they're looking for exits. This leg down is strong enough to potentially gauge a second, and we do have a POC underneath it. So too strong of a bear bar, and I'm not going to buy it like that. I'm not going to buy it. Like, I can't buy in the face of that. Jeez. Sellers are able to drive it down to a new low. Still not down to the point of interest, though. $83.25. It's not quite there yet. That's a very strong bar. Come on. Bear engulfing gets sellers suckered in at the lows, thinking that it's going to go lower down into the POC. Great signal, terrible location type mentality. Could also be a great signal and a terrible location for myself, depending on how it wants to follow through. This flush underneath is fine. Remember, this is a zone. I like this POC area. Now, this reversal back up, that's fantastic. Let's see. From the average point of interest, we should have a rejection up that's aggressive enough to be able to get up at least into the 98 quarters. Nice little dip down to draw the average a bit lower. If they crack underneath 63, that's fine, but the next time they do return back up, which they will very likely do, I'll be looking more as a way to mitigate risk, reduce a bit, play it safer. If they don't break that low, then that's a big deal. Especially noting how close it's come. There's the dip underneath the low. Nice little flush underneath the base. But again, now my objective isn't necessarily, unless it gets a really strong reversal back up, then I like where my average is at around 70 quarter. But as it stands, we're starting to pull back now in the grand scheme to an L3, and L3s are more indicative of confusion. We are trying to hold the L1, L2 for a continuation of the trend. We start hitting L3s. It's not to say that the bulls can't get this to cycle back up, but it's more likely we find resistance up in the 890s to 900s, maybe up into the 12s. And although I doubt it, I don't think that would happen, but if it did go screaming to the upside, then around 83 would be an area of interest, I suppose. But I would like to try to get my average a bit lower down now that we're starting to show a potential sideways bottom. And as far as the downside for swings, it's fallen away so aggressively that if it does pull back, Out of the short, nice. At the moment, upside objectives back up to the highs for 2-to-1s would put it up in like the 27.75s. What a little chop fest here. What is this little bitty range going on? All right, sellers starting to show up a little more to the party here. Still haven't really had a reason to draw average anything down at all. It's every time it tries to go lower, it's not really giving me a shot. Sorry, everyone. I've been long. That's why it's going down. It's all good. In the short term, we're likely to see a bit more continuation down, especially after a bear bar like that. I do like the long and where this is, but for the short term, you've got to take it with, you know, what it's telling you. It's more likely to have more continuation to the downside. So shorts will be looking for scalp shorts underneath that bear bar, looking for more continuation down. Which is why I'm not willing to buy yet, right? If I still have reasons for sellers to come in, then I have no reason to be buying. Those sellers did not trigger. That's a big clue. Now, if it goes underneath that bear bar, it's more likely a false trigger, which is a trap. Not always, but that will usually be a good spot to at least bring down the average a little bit. Or we're just going to stay inside this little bitty range. That bear bar down, again, is a reason for sellers to sell. I have no reason to buy anymore. If you're going to be adding to a trade, you've got to make the trade really prove itself. Possible bear engulfing is still a reason for sellers to come in. I have no reason to add to my long. Context for the bigger picture is still very nice for an upswing, but more so for a lower high targeting back up into the 900s, which is why I would like to try to get my average down, because at the moment my target's got to be above the high. That is a very nice bull bar. Can they trigger the bull bar, though? Just having a nice bull bar at the bottom doesn't mean a thing. They cannot, okay? Still no reason to add. Gotta be picky. Crude still hovering in the L1s. I mean, the L2 on crude doesn't show up until 67.20s. It's got a long way to go. Euro's starting to pick up a bit of steam to the upside. Bear's still pressuring down. Well, in the short term, we'll be able to still, although nothing's really setting up, but if we do get a turning point on the micro, it might allow a point for a swing long to at least build, or at least a reset for the sellers to try to reload for another move back down. Ooh. Yeah, Jolt's news is at 10. I really like this flush to the downside towards the Euro session lows. Average is still not very favorable, but I've still got quite a bit of work to do. Unless news goes in my favor, then it'll make my life a little bit easier, I suppose. News didn't do a thing. Numbers came out, just so you know, even though it really didn't move the markets at all. The number came out at 9.286 million. So, and that does also mean that we are at 10 o'clock. Right back to the Euro session highs. Nice. All right, now I can rock the boat a little bit if we can get a pop back up towards like the 40s to 45s to draw my average down in a bit more favorable position. Otherwise, I've got a little bit more ammo in the clip left for about 3. And modified at the moment, 2 to 1 would be still above the highs. So I've still got some work to do. It's all good. Still got time. But that's going to do it for the morning side of things. If I missed any questions, feel free to get those sent in, jhb@ssftg.com. Otherwise, I hope you had a great morning session, and we'll wrap it up. Enjoy, rest up. For you, for those of you on the VIP side of things, just hang out in the Zoom meeting. You don't have to do anything other than listen to me babble for a minute. And on the YouTube side of things, if you are a member, you can swap over on the extended session by going to the communities page. You'll find the link inside there. But either way, enjoy, rest up, and we will see the rest of you back tomorrow morning. And for those of you, we'll see you in a couple minutes. Have a good one. We'll talk to you all later. Thanks.